I just have to record it because I don't have anybody to record. So I was talking to homie about 1997 and how that specific song, the dynamic changed where if you said you didn't like something, you were automatically a hater. And he took it to mean I said it sucked. And I was like, it doesn't, like, I didn't think that song ruined rap. I think people jump to conclusions with that. Like, nothing ruined rap. A lot of things happened and things changed.
Yeah.
Like, I was explaining to him, I was 21 when this album came out. I was 22 when this happened. So my perspective is different from you.
Right.
Because as you know, like, when you get into music, typically you're between 9 and 13. So this is when everything is shaped. This is when you develop taste and everything else.
Right.
So when I'm explaining hip hop or rap music, the lineage of it to people, there's a lot they don't understand. So I'm like, we can't just jump to generalizations. We have to like bridge gaps and explain things, our points of view. So how do you feel about that in general?
I agree with you, but I think sometimes people like us, we are behind the fourth wall.
Yeah.
I don't know your introduction to Puff, but I used to work with him.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I used to work with Jessica Rosenbaum and Stress Management, Stress Entertainment.
You were on a street team at one point.
Yeah,
right?
I was on a street team, and Puff was somebody my introduction to him was, that's the realest hip hop nigga out.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the one who's holding hip hop down.
Yeah.
So this whole like multi-millionaire sort of symbol of capitalism.
That's a new guy.
That's somebody different than it's the same guy.
Yeah.
Same guy, but the stages as
iteration, yeah.
Right, but he's not unique in that. There's Jay-Z's who's like that, Kanye West is like that.
Absolutely.
Pharrell Williams is like that. These are superstars.
Yeah.
Global superstars, but who come from our community.
Yeah.
So we have a very different relationship with them. And he just asked me out the blue, out of context.
Yeah.
Hey man, do you think Can't Nobody Hold Me Down is a good song? I said, yeah. When Mace rhymed Puff a La La with Amadaha,
Yeah.
like, to me, I remember hearing that on the radio and be like, fuck, how did he rhyme La La with Daha? I thought that was genius. He made it sound, those words don't rhyme at all.
Yeah.
But he made them sound like they rap. Puff is very good at whether it was G-Dep or Black Rob or Mace or Jadakiss or Styles P or Chic, like whoever was writing the rhymes, Puff was able to kick them and sound like the person who was writing the rhymes, but still sound like Puff.
Yeah, but like the thing about what people don't understand is like what they call creative now, he always was. My introduction to Puff was Sean Combs or Puffy. Because I had family in Mount Vernon.
Yeah.
So my family in Mount Vernon, they introduced me to a kid named Pete who used to DJ, and sometimes he DJ'd for Marley Marl on the radio. And then they told me about, one of my cousins was telling me about this dude, Dwight, who got signed to Uptown MCA at Heavy D. So I know Grap Lover from when he was Greg, who used to skateboard. So it's like, I knew Puff is a dude who could gig, who could dance, he could go off.
Right, you see him in that Dougie Fresh video.
Yeah.
Summertime.
Yeah.
Having fun, dancing.
So I would get called in Boston from my cousins, like, yo, Puffy's in this new video for
Father MC.
Yeah, Father MC, or he's in a new video for Fine Young Cannibals.
Right.
It's like, we don't have MTV, so we can't see it. And they're bragging about being in the Money Earning Mount Vernon video. And Grap's like, I couldn't go because I was working, So it's like, that's my introduction to him. So I don't have the same perception, because I guess people lump cats like me and they automatically think that I just hate everybody. It's like, no, I'm old enough to remember when everybody got their start in the game.
Nuance is a lost art, brother.
Yeah.
And especially as you get older, you become more nuanced, and it's lost on more and more people.
Yeah, because they don't know the backstory.
Yeah, so you find yourself getting surprised. Like, you would think as you get older that you would get less surprised.
Yeah.
But I'm finding as I get older, I get more surprised at what people don't understand because of my level of experience.
Yeah.
Because I've seen so much, you sometimes take it for granted that people haven't seen what you've seen. So I'm like, y'all really don't know that? Like, you really think that that's how this happened? Like, you really are that misinformed?
Yeah.
It's kind of amazing.
And I think another thing is it's a problem with trying to bridge the gap is that I try to tell people you can't Google everything. The big drawback of the internet is that whatever has to be put online for you to Google, then you have to know what to Google specifically.
That's it right there. Knowing the difference between research and shit posting, I guess,
Exactly.
is you can go if you are Googling to find your information, if you're using Wikipedia, what happens is that you end up on websites that have agendas
Yes.
that are very ugly. You know, there's a lot of websites and a lot of people are dedicated to and invested in lies. And there's a lot of stuff on the internet that's dedicated to misinformation.
Absolutely.
So if you are doing your research by just Googling things and accepting everything that you receive on Google on the surface, then you are doing a disservice not just to yourself but to society.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with Googling for information, but if you Google something and you read something on a website, then you need to Google that website, and then you need to Google who owns that website and who put money behind that website before you take that information on face value.
Yeah.
Because they'll take something that's factual, like someone will say a statement, or the FBI will put out a report, or someone will say something. They'll take a fact and then they'll put their spin on it and their interpretation of it on this fact, and then they'll report their interpretation, which is flawed, as fact. And then you'll read it. And then mainstream media will pick up on some of these erroneous facts and report them as facts. So then you're like, okay, well, CNN said this. Well, Fox said this. It's like, okay, well, where did they get that from?
Exactly.
And
where was the source of information?
What was the source of information and who's behind that? And, you know, John Oliver did something recently. I don't know if you saw it on the newspaper industry.
Yeah.
You see that?
Yes.
It was brilliant because it's like me as someone, you know, I don't buy newspapers or magazines anymore. I used to buy newspapers and magazines as I travel, but I don't because I'm like, it's a waste of paper. I can read everything on my phone. Why would I do that? But he was right that we depend on newspaper journalists who work for newspapers. They are the source of information that are really vetting everything and really doing the investigative journalism. And every website that we can use as a verifiable source depends on some fucking newspaper in some town somewhere for their information. So what are we going to do when we phase this out? It's just going to be a gaggle of misinformation.
Yeah. And the nuttiest part is that I was talking to my brother, and he explained to me, I was talking about Snopes. He was like, you know, Snopes is just a man and his wife. It's like...
Yeah, and I see, me personally, you know, I pride myself on having facts.
Yes.
And Snopes is a site that I depend on to have the facts because they do due diligence.
Absolutely.
But Snopes is also biased. It's like I read a lot of alternative media. And the alternative media that I depend on for information is biased. It's left-leaning. I'm not a liberal. I don't consider myself a leftist. I consider myself progressive. And because I'm progressive, I align with left-leaning biased sites. But I find that the biased sites that whether it be Snopes or Salon or Raw Story or Huffington Post or Daily Beast or whoever, I find that they're more willing to be accountable for their bias. Like, they can be biased, and there's a lot of hyperbole and non-journalistic shit that I see with these sites. But when they're caught telling a lie or they're caught making a mistake, there's some sort of accountability there.
Okay, so this is an issue I have, specifically with rap journalism. In rock journalism, if you get a fact wrong or you do something, it's like everybody has to apologize.
That's right.
It's
There's
a mistake made. Heads will roll. You cannot mess up the date that John Lennon met Paul McCartney.
Right, that's right.
And in rap journalism, I found it, okay, for instance, Complex did a piece, and they were talking about how Drake was going to be nominated for a Grammy for the first diss record. I was like, that's not true. Actually, LL Cool J won a Grammy for Mama Said Knock You Out. And it got RT'd 500 times, and they saw it, because I know they all follow me, but they never made a retraction. They never apologized. They never fixed it.
Complex has printed several erroneous things that they don't make retractions for.
Yeah, and it's like another issue happened where, there was a piece posted on Medium, and they did a piece about the oral history of DITC. The problem with the oral history of DITC is they completely leave out Diamond D at a crucial era of his production, like 91 to 94.
Right.
Where he was king. He wasn't Pete Rock. He wasn't Premier, but he was definitely like a king.
He went for his.
Yeah, and they just leave him out of the narrative.
Medium is tricky because Medium is not necessarily a verifiable news source.
Exactly.
Medium is more like Twitter. It's Twitter for people who can write.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, Complex should get their shit a lot more correct than they do because they claim to be a representative of the culture.
Yeah, but they don't always bring in people that can.
No,
actually
they're
do the job.
representative of corporate interests.
Yes,
and they
absolutely.
capitalize on hip hop culture. But they claim to be a representative of hip hop culture. People need to understand that they post things for likes and clickbait and hits and stuff like that. Definitely.
So this is one of the biggest issues I have because I kind of got blackballed because I'm all about accountability. I'm all about accuracy. And I know that I have a certain bias because I know that some areas are being underserved. And I'm like, look, you need to cover everything.
Right.
There needs to be balance. And balance is solely lacking and there's no accountability.
Yeah, I read a book in high school by a hip hop journalist who used to be a graffiti artist, William
Upski. Yep, Wimsat. Billy Wimsat.
Yeah, and he wrote a book called Bomb the Suburbs that was out when I was in high school. I bought it at a bookstore. And he had a line in there where he was dissecting hip-hop journalism. Now, this is in the infancy of hip-hop journalism.
Yeah.
Like, the source had just come out. Like, I'm just, like, this is pre-Vibe, pre-XXL.
The source had just, like, moved from Boston
from
to
Harvard
New York.
into what it was, into becoming the Bible for hip-hop culture.
Yeah.
And he wrote, and he had Upski at that time had personal issues with certain hip hop journalists.
Yeah.
So his personal issues, I've learned this as an adult now, have made their way into the book. But one thing he wrote that stuck with me, he said hip hop journalists are groupies with pens. Now, to be fair, as a 40-year-old man, I know that his personal issues, he was dealing with certain female hip hop journalists, that might have come across as a little misogynistic.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? But him writing that in that book stuck with me because the point that he was making was that, and it goes to what you're saying, hip-hop journalism, essentially from the beginning of it to now, has been fans.
Absolutely.
People who just, like whatever's hot right now. They don't have no integrity. They don't have no training. They don't have no accountability. They're just fans. There's nothing wrong with being a fan, but there's a big difference between a fan and a journalist.
Absolutely.
And when fans are getting jobs as journalists without the training, that's an issue.
Yeah. So it's like the tenets of journalism aren't really held up because of the speed of real-time social media, and that's a problem. There isn't any real training. That's a problem. There's no real vetting process for what you know or what you don't know. That's a problem. There are people that can just write and are given the opportunity to write about anything. That's a problem. There are people that can't write that write.
I mean, I don't see too many people. I don't see too many people who can write. Mm-hmm. Even if I disagree, I can read someone's writing and disagree with them.
Yeah.
But recognize this is a good writer.
Yeah.
That's an intelligent person who thought this out. Mm-hmm. I don't see too much of that. I feel like the vast majority of hip hop journalism, like if I wanted to start a second career, I could outright all these dudes.
Yeah.
Me personally, that's how I feel. And I shouldn't feel like that. As an MC, I shouldn't be able to do your job better than you.
Yeah, because you rely on these people to do this job so I can do this job. Mm-hmm. Just like right now in like rap journalism, I'm kind of trying to look for the exit. I'm trying to get into being a professor or getting an actual professorship.
Book,
yeah.
I just had a meeting with my publisher yesterday and they gave me some advice that was hard to hear. I submitted a 40-chapter book. I'm 40 years old. A chapter for each year of my life. Mm-hmm. You know what they told me?
It's too long.
It's too long.
Absolutely.
And you know what? And I had to sit there. I sat there in this 2-hour meeting, and we went through my book, and they told me things they could take out, and I was trying to explain to them.
It's crucial to the book.
This is not to the book, to my life. Yeah. Like this is, but I had to look at myself. I had to take myself out of the equation and look at it for someone who's reading a book. Mm-hmm. It's like it might be crucial to me, but does it make sense for this book?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is a process. This is something I'm going through now. But you have to write a book, and you have to write a series of books. Yeah. You have to do books with the major publishers, and you have to do independent books that you put out yourself.
Yeah.
Like you have to define your legacy.
I have about 5 ideas, and it's just like I just need something to get the execution going. Mm-hmm. Because at this time, it's like I was writing to afford to write. And it's like, that's not how you do it. You know,
that's correct.
You can't, you can't, it's not sustainable. I've learned that quick. And plus, nobody wants to pay for a piece about like me breaking down 1986, how it was the beginning of the first golden era when I don't know who the audience is and who's going to pay.
No, you post that on your website.
Yes. And
you get your shit cracking to whereas it becomes the advertisement for what they do want to pay for.
Absolutely. Yep. All right. Well, that's pretty much all I just want to cover with you, man. Thank you for coming to Lexington.
No doubt.
I appreciate it.
Now, what is this for? Where you put it?